Breaking tonight, President Trump making good on his promise to remove illegal aliens, and that is firing up the resistance tonight. But who deported more illegals, this administration or the prior one? We're going to show you the numbers on a day full of palace intrigue at the White House. Lots going on. I'm Martha McCallum. It is day 25 now of the first 100. So first, President Trump cracked down on who can and cannot be in this country in two ways, really. He's doing extreme vetting, which, as you know, is now tied up in the courts. There's some breaking news on that tonight, as well as a crackdown by ICE as Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents arrest nearly 700 illegal immigrants, 75% of whom Homeland Security says have committed violent crimes. The others are repeat immigration law offenders. So is this business as usual for ICE, or is it something more?
We have really done a great job. We're actually taking people that are criminals, very, very hardened criminals in some cases, with a tremendous track record of abuse and problems, and we're getting them out. And that's what I said I would do. I'm just doing what I said I would do. I said we will get the criminals out, the drug lords, the gang members. We're getting them out. General Kelly, who's sitting right here, is doing a fantastic job. And I said at the beginning, we are going to get the bad ones, the really bad ones. We're getting them out.
On the President Trump side, David Wohl, and against the former mayor of Los Angeles, Antonio Villaraigosa, in a moment. But first, let's go to Judge Andrew Napolitano, who is here with the breaking news on the next steps in the president's legal fight over his extreme vetting plan. But first, we go to Trace Gallagher out in our West Coast bureau, who's got the latest details on these new deportation raids. Hello, Trace.
Hey, Martha, we're not saying President Trump isn't living up to his campaign promises, because over the last week, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, arrested nearly 700 criminal aliens. Or as Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly says, people who are illegal and then some, including those convicted of murder, rape, sexual assault on children, drug trafficking, DUI, and weapons charges. So yes, ICE is busy, but there is zero evidence showing that immigration agents are doing more under the Trump administration than during the Obama administration. In fact, the numbers show they're not doing nearly as much. Consider that last week, the nationwide ICE operation targeting convicted criminal aliens netted 680 arrests. In March of 2015, under President Obama, a nationwide 5-day operation netted more than 2,000 criminal aliens. Under the 8 years of George W. Bush, more than 2 million illegal aliens were deported. Under President Obama, it was well over 3 million. Experts say the difference now is fear-mongering, like false social media reports of people being arrested on their way to church, or about raids and sweeps that never happen. Secretary Kelly says nobody's going into Walmart to check papers. He says agents know exactly who they're looking for. But one immigration advocate told the New York Times, quote, "It really doesn't matter if it's business as usual from ICE's perspective. At some point, we know they will start to ramp up enforcement activity. But so far, immigration enforcement under President Trump is pretty routine." Martha.
Thanks, Trace. Here now, David Wohl, an attorney, and Antonio Villaraigosa, the former mayor of Los Angeles and a candidate for the governor of California. Welcome to both of you.
Hi, Martha.
Hi there. I want to start with last week we played a soundbite from President Clinton, which sounded really not that dissimilar from what we've heard from President Trump in many ways. And here is President Obama talking about illegal immigration.
But those who enter the country illegally and those who employ them disrespect the rule of law, and they are showing disregard for those who are following the law. We simply cannot allow people to pour into the United States undetected, undocumented, unchecked, and circumventing the line of people who are waiting patiently, diligently, and lawfully to become immigrants in this country.
Let's go to the mayor first on this. So what's the difference, Mayor? Why is there so much hysteria over the Trump actions?
First of all, I'll defend President Obama when it's warranted. I'm not going to defend his deportation policy. I didn't agree with it, and I don't agree with what's going on here. If it's true that upwards of 75% of the 700 plus people who have been deported are serious criminals, why won't they respond to the Congress who's asked for that specific information, detailed information on exactly who's been deported and what they've done. We hear, I've heard from lawyers who represent the Rapid Response Network of lawyers that are representing these deportees, saying that a number of the people, a good number, don't have exact numbers, but a good number of them have not committed serious violent crimes. That in fact there have been some checkpoints in Texas specifically, we've been told.
They include 75%, according to the document by Homeland Security, says that these people are criminal violators, right? The other 25%, they say, are people who've been either kicked out a couple of times or have been told they have to leave by a certain date and still have not left. David Wohl,
or have used
go ahead,
fake documents, or have used fake documents. That's what I'm saying. Why don't they show us the evidence of that? Now, remember, too, you're taking statements that have come from three different people, but we're not putting them in a context. The context here is that President Trump has talked about for a year and a half deporting 11 million people. That is a number that we've never seen anywhere.
David, it's your turn to respond.
And so it's within that context.
Martha, let me tell you, I've seen the statistics. For example, last week in L.A., 160 people were arrested. 150 of those 160 had serious felony convictions like child molestation, sexual assault, serious violent felonies. And Martha, I've represented people for many years. And when someone is convicted either by jury trial or they enter a plea to a felony case, a judge reads an admonishment saying that if you are not a citizen of the United States, not you may, not you could, but you will be deported. So this is no surprise to these people. The surprise is they've detrimentally relied on the last 8 years when Barack Obama did not go after people in these type of criminal raids for deportation purposes. So yes, their families have expanded. Their children have relied on the fact that these people would still be in America. But when I saw Mr. Trump at a rally last summer in Costa Mesa, I asked him about some of his promises, including immigration stuff, and I'll never forget, he looked me in the eye when we met, and he said, you just watch when it comes to whether or not he's going to follow through on this stuff, whether he was serious about the wall. This man means business. He wants to protect America, and that includes the Latinos in Southern California who are law-abiding citizens who want protection themselves. So this is across the board important.
Martha, nobody is suggesting that if somebody is a serial rapist, has hurt children, has committed serious violent crimes, that they shouldn't be deported.
I think we're all on the same page on that, Mayor. So let me ask you this, though. What if someone has repeatedly been kicked out of the country and allowed to come back in, like Kate Steinle's killer, for example? What if they have no prior violent record, but they have been told by a judge, you have to leave by December 2013, and then it's discovered by ICE, you know what? You're still here several years later in 2017. Why? And that's against the law, Mayor. I mean, if you've been told you have to leave and given time to do so, then that's the law. I mean, how do you get around that?
The law is broken, Martha. The law is broken. We both know, Democrats and Republicans, that the immigration system is broken. Why not spend our time fixing it instead of terrorizing communities, coming into those communities in the way that they're doing, dividing children from their parents in the way that we've seen in a number of these cases?
But if the numbers were higher under President Obama, why is there so much fear and anxiety now? When he was
I already said to you, I'm not defending President Obama. I'm not defending President Obama on his immigration policy.
But the point is that President Trump is being treated differently by the media. Go ahead, David.
The point is, Martha, the point is that the media is outraged when Trump does it as opposed to when Mr. Obama does it. Why? Because Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump. But the reality is, Martha, when you re-enter the country, as you were just talking about, and you've got a criminal record, there are federal penalties for that. These should be filed in federal courts, and there are federal prison requirements for someone who repeatedly does that, like the man in San Francisco who killed Kate Steinle. And I think the mayor would agree. I mean, the mayor could well be the governor of California, and I hope he is, to be honest with you, because anything would be better than what we have now. And I bet you the mayor will work with President Trump on this issue. Right. There are multiple levels of the issue that have to be dealt with. When it comes to someone who's got a violent felony record and they re-enter the United States States time after time, look,
I think on
you've
that
got
one,
to
everybody's
take
on the same
appropriate
page.
action.
Gentlemen, we got to go. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
Thank you,
for
Martha.
being here. David Wall, thanks to you as well. So also breaking tonight, a district court judge in Washington state rejected the arguments from the White House, moving forward with a trial, threatening to deliver another blow to the president's executive orders on extreme vetting. Judge Andrew Napolitano is Fox News senior judicial analyst. Judge, always good to see you.
Likewise.
So what's new? What happened?
All right, so here's what happened. On Thursday, when the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, a panel of 3 judges, ruled against the president, keeping in place the nationwide restraining order put in place by a trial judge. After that, over the weekend, one member of the court, not one of those 3, there are 29 judges on this court, said, I think the whole court should hear the case. When the Trump administration learned that this judge made this request, they said to the trial judge, we think you should not do anything in the trial court level until the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, all 29 of them, decide whether or not as a group they want to hear it. In fact, they don't sit as a group. It's too large and unwieldy. They sit in a group of 10 or 11. Just 5 minutes before you came on air, the trial judge in Seattle, Judge Robart, the one who issued the order 2 weeks ago that was the subject of the appeal, said, I'm not going to stop the trial. We're going to go forward. And if the president of the United States expects his executive order to be enforced, he's going to have to demonstrate the evidence to support that executive order. So we have a federal trial judge in Seattle basically saying to the president of the United States, why did you decide to stop immigration from these 9 countries? Come in this courtroom and prove your case.
All right. So the White House doesn't want that process to go through the Ninth Circuit, right? But they also have the option, as you had pointed out, to rewrite the executive order in a way that might work better.
I have been arguing all day that the president, for legal, constitutional, and political reasons, should tear up the executive order of the 29th of January, write a new one. If he does that, this case goes away. So do the 48 other cases that have been filed against him. And he knows what the deficiencies are in that order, so he knows how to correct them.
Do-over.
Yes.
All right, Judge, we'll see. Thank you very much.
Monitoring it for
Good
you.
to see you. Thank you. So also breaking tonight, National Security Advisor Michael Flynn in hot water after a controversy erupted over a conversation he held last December with the Russian ambassador. And tonight there are conflicting reports out of the White House about his status. Mark Thiessen and Matt Bennett here on That Breaking News just ahead.
Ivanka, you might just want to say a couple of words.
Welcome, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from each of you.
I think I might want a handshake. Our 2 nations share much more than a border. We share the same values.
Canadians and Americans alike share a common history, as well as people-to-people ties that make us completely and totally integrated.
We have a very outstanding trade relationship with Canada. We'll be tweaking it.
Tweaking it. Breaking tonight, we are going to continue to see the dramatic headlines out of the White House this hour, even after the hectic day that you have seen unfold here, while President Trump's Day 25 included a Women in the Workplace meeting that involved his daughter Ivanka and a visit with the Canadian Prime Minister. Looming over all of that were 2 big stories. First, how to react to the missile test staged by North Korea on Friday, and second, new questions about the fate of his national security advisor, Michael Flynn. For the latest on that, we go to the White House to the chief correspondent, John Roberts. John, good evening to you.
Hey, good evening to you, Martha. You know, there's an old adage in play at the White House that when the president says he has, quote, full confidence in you, start looking for a job. It's happened many, many times in the past. We don't know yet if it's going to happen with Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, the National Security Advisor, but certainly he seems to be on a little bit rockier ground than he was 24 hours ago. Of course, what's going on here is that Flynn had several phone conversations with the Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. They said that it was talking just about general things, setting up a phone call between the president and Vladimir Putin of Russia, but some intercepts in an FBI investigation that had been made public suggest that Flynn may have talked about sanctions with Kislyak. Last week, Flynn said, we never talked sanctions. Then the day after that said, well, we might have, I'm not sure. But he did definitively tell the vice president that he hadn't talked sanctions. And that's why the vice president went out on one of those Sunday morning shows and said that Flynn never talked to Kislyak about sanctions. Well, now we learned today through sources that Michael Flynn apologized to the vice president for telling him that he had no conversations about sanctions when in fact he might have. That led to a whole flurry of speculation about whether Flynn was long for the White House or if he might be heading out the door. Earlier today, Kellyanne Conway said that the president has full confidence in Lieutenant General Flynn. And then a short time later, Sean Spicer came out from a meeting with the president right after the president and said this. Listen.
The president is evaluating the situation. He's speaking to Vice President Pence relative to the conversation the vice president had with General Flynn, and also speaking to various other people about what he considers the single most important subject there is, our national security.
So we don't really know too much about this evaluation, and we don't know if it's going to end with General Flynn's firing. But I can tell you something about body language, though. When the president came out, he was asked about Flynn. He said, "We're about to put out a statement." When he was asked again about Flynn, he said, "We're about to put out a statement." Then when he was asked about Reince Priebus, is he doing a good job? He said, "No, he's not doing a good job. He's doing a great job." So you had praise for Reince Priebus, and we're going to put out a statement about Flynn. The body language, at least for now, Martha, does not look good.
Wow. John, thank you. All right, so let's chew this over with Mark Thiessen, an American Enterprise Institute fellow and Fox News contributor, and Matt Bennett, former deputy assistant to President Bill Clinton. You've both been around these situations. Matt, let me start with you. Read the tea leaves here for us.
As a senior Democratic senator, when he mangles his metaphors, would say you can stick a fork in him, he's toast. There is no way you survive lying to the vice president and having him go out on national television and lie on your behalf. It just can't be done. The National Security Advisor is often described as the honest broker, the person who's supposed to negotiate between the Defense Department, the State Department, the intelligence community, and others. You can't be an honest broker if you've lied.
You know, this is an office and a person who has been very close to President Trump, Mark, throughout this entire process. I mean, he was on the campaign trail with him. They did town hall things together. They clearly have a good relationship. I would imagine that this would be a very tough decision for President Trump.
I'm sure it was, and quite frankly,
you say was like that's that.
I mean, it is or is.
You think it's over?
It is. Well, he said he's putting out a statement, so it sounds like they have a decision. But I think the problem is always the cover-up is almost always worse than the crime. So if he hadn't lied to Vice President Pence, I think he'd be perfectly fine because, quite frankly, he did nothing illegal. Having that conversation with the Russian ambassador is not against the law. However, there were crimes committed against him. It is, for example, against the United States law to spy on an American citizen. If you are listening in on the Russian ambassador and you get a conversation with an American, there are steps that have to be taken to mitigate that. So the fact that he's in an intelligence report, number one, is problematic. And number two, it's illegal to leak signals intelligence to the press. So there are apparently 9 people in the Trump administration who leaked this classified document, this classified information to the press. That is a crime. Those people should be fired. Those people should be prosecuted for doing that. So Flynn would be on fine ground if he hadn't lied to Vice President Pence. It's just people never learn in Washington. It's always the cover-up is more important, is worse than the crime.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're buying time on this. We've gotten a lot of mixed signals about it, and we'll see where it goes. I want to put up a statement on North Korea that came out just a little while ago from Nikki Haley, the U.S. ambassador. She said, "We call on members," and this obviously is with regard to the missile test that happened over the weekend. It was not an ICBM, but a ballistic missile launch. "We call on members of the Security Council to use every available resource to make it clear to the North Korean regime and its enablers that these launches are unacceptable. It is time to hold North Korea accountable, not with our words, but with our actions." Mark, back to you, and then to Matt. What do you make of it?
I think that's a very encouraging statement because I think you do need to have actions. I mean, it's very simple what the action ought to be. We ought to put either land-based or sea-based missile defenses in Korea or in the Sea of Japan, and the next time they take they try to fire a missile, shoot it down. That'll send a clear signal to North Korea, and it'll put them on their heels. So I think action is needed, absolutely, 100%.
Matt, what do you think about that statement?
Look, I think it's fine as long as it's backed up by reality. What you see often in the Trump administration, as young as it is kind of bluster without any backup. If there's chaos in the national security ranks of this administration, it's going to be very difficult for them to follow through on any of the threats that Ambassador Haley is making.
Mark, is that fair? 3 weeks in?
Well, so far it's been 3 weeks, and he hasn't drawn a red line that he hasn't enforced. So I guess it's kind of hard to take that criticism seriously. I think he's handled this very well. He huddled with the Prime Minister of Japan. He put out a statement saying we stand 100% with the people of Japan, and he's promised through his UN ambassador to take action to counter this. I think that's a lot better than saying to the Syrians, "We're going to bomb you if you cross this red line," and then not doing it.
We got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Matt and Mark. Good to see you both.
Brother.
So it's not just Michael Flynn who has come under some increased pressure tonight, as one of President Trump's closest confidants took a shot at White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus over the weekend. Carl Higbie and Robert Zimmerman here on whether we can expect a shakeup at the White House. Plus, Judge Neil Gorsuch making the rounds on Capitol Hill again today to try to lock down his Supreme Court nomination. Former Senator Kelly Ayotte, who is helping Mr. Gorsuch get through that process, joins us on that and New Hampshire politics. Straight ahead. Breaking tonight, as we told you moments ago, new reports suggesting cabinet-level shakeups are possible as the White House reveals President Trump is, quote, evaluating the situation when it comes to National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. We're going to bring you that news as it happens. We know the president said they would be releasing or were working on some kind of statement. What does that mean? We don't know yet. So we'll show you as soon as it comes out. In the meantime, a lot of questions this evening about another member of the White House staff as a close confidant to the president declared his own major concerns about Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. Watch this.
I think there's a lot of weakness coming out of the Chief of Staff. I think Reince Priebus, good guy, well-intentioned, but he clearly doesn't know how the federal agencies work. I do think the president's not getting the backup he needs in the operation of the White House, and sometimes the pushback that he needs, which you would have with a stronger White House counsel, White House Chief of Staff.
Okay. Joining me now, Carl Higbie is a veteran Navy SEAL and supporter of President Trump. Robert Zimmerman is Democratic strategist and DNC committee member. Welcome to both of you. On Reince and on Michael Flynn, there's a lot of speculation out there tonight.
Yeah, a lot of speculation, and I can only speak, I don't know much more than the media, but look, General Flynn has been, to me, always a very trustworthy, very straightforward guy, like a remarkable character. So I can't speak to what's going on behind the scenes, but I can say that he has just outstanding character as far as I'm concerned. So,
Carl, isn't this where you shout live from New York? It's Saturday night.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be serious about this. He's acknowledged already lying to the vice president. Yeah. And why do you think? And the bigger question, though, is why were these phone calls made to the Russian ambassador by the president-elect's national security advisor the same day that President Obama announced severe sanctions against Russia? It's time now for an independent special prosecutor to begin to evaluate not just why these phone calls were made by the national security advisor, but also to further examine the connections between the Trump campaign and Russia and, in fact, the hacking that our intelligence community confirmed.
I'm all for transparency. Get it out there. Let's figure out what actually happened.
What do you think in terms of what has been seen as some chaos surrounding this situation? I mean, that gets so much attention, and we just went through a number of accomplishments that have happened over the course of the last week. Yeah. But unfortunately for the Trump administration, they've had good meetings with Japan, good meetings with Canada today, a lot going on, but then this other bluster stuff gets a lot of attention, and then there's this speculation about you, that you might want to get involved in the communications department there. Is that real?
Well, so I got the call Friday night. They said, hey, I heard you're going into Sean Spicer's position. I said, well, news to me.
Who said this?
This was a reporter who called me on Friday night. I had no idea. I had been involved in loose talks with the administration about, potentially a DOD or a State Department in communications or spokesperson. So I did not interview for Sean Spicer's job, and look, I've served the president since day one as, a powerful surrogate for him. And I fully believe in his message, and I believe in his presidency, and I'd be happy and honored to serve any way possible, but I'm not here to take Sean Spicer's job.
Okay. Let's go to this. Some sound from Al Franken, the senator, talking about President Trump.
Is it true that Republican colleagues of yours express concern about President Trump's mental health?
A few.
Really?
Yeah. It's not the majority of them, it's a few.
In what way?
In the way that we all have this suspicion that that he lies a lot. He says things that aren't true. That's the same as lying, I guess.
Wow. I mean, Robert.
Well, let's be clear. It's not just the Democrats who are saying the president lied. You've got Republican leaders in Congress calling him out for lying about illegal voting, for example. And I think it's important for also lying about his crowd sizes at the inauguration. You know, you can talk about Reince Priebus, you can even talk about General Flynn, but after you change the deck chairs in the Titanic, it doesn't matter until you change the direction of the ship. And ultimately, what we're seeing in terms of the crisis of confidence from Republicans in Congress, backing away from the president on his Mexican wall, now opposing him on the Muslim ban, standing up to him on many initiatives, it's because they don't trust his competence or his leadership.
I mean, it's highly possible that the reason that these discussions even take place and all of this other sort of fluff and chaos around the White House is because this has been an incredibly aggressive agenda that has played out over now 25 days. I have seen several presidencies. I have never seen this kind of activity. So, yeah, I'm sure Al Franken would much rather talk about the fact that he thinks there's wackoness going on. Sure. But there's stuff that's real that is going on at the White House that is much more important, is it not? Whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. And the issue here is that, look, President Trump does not have his full cabinet in place, and there's an enormous amount of infighting. I don't have any inside information on this, Martha. There's an enormous amount of infighting, and it's showing publicly. You have the Trump loyalists, the people who've been there from the beginning, and then you have the politicos, and they're fighting back and forth. As soon as they can drop their egos and get on the same page as President Trump and actually execute his agenda as he wants to see it, things are going to be a lot smoother.
Do you expect that stuff to straighten out soon?
Not only do I not see it straightening out soon, I think the much bigger problem is the president cannot hold the Republicans in Congress together with him for his agenda. And ultimately, when you get done with all the tweets and the sound bites,
that's for real.
That's for real. You can't govern unless you can unite the country. That's this president's challenge.
Fascinating. Thanks, you guys. Good to see you both. And let us know if you have any new jobs to tell us about, Carl.
I'll let you know.
All right. All right. So we want to know tonight, do you really care about the internal strife at the White House? It always gets a ton of attention. But is it what really matters to you? Tweet me your answer at Martha MacCallum using the hashtag First100. And we'll read some of those answers later in the show. We want to know if you're screaming at your TV right now or if you're on the board. All right. So with the president's team involved in a high-stakes court fight, there is new attention on Neil Gorsuch. Here's a substantive topic for you. Donald Trump's pick to be the next Supreme Court justice. Former Senator Kelly Ayotte is in charge of his confirmation process, getting him around to meet everybody. She joins us next. Breaking news just moments ago, Steve Mnuchin has just been confirmed by the Senate as the new Treasury Secretary. It was a 53-47 vote, another very close vote for a cabinet member for the president. Ed Henry is going to join us a little bit more on that. Also tonight, day 25 of the Trump presidency marks exactly 1 year since Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia passed away. And just days after taking office, President Trump named Judge Neil Gorsuch as his pick to replace Scalia. Gorsuch spent much of the day on Capitol Hill once again, meeting with lawmakers. He's being shepherded through the process by former New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte, and she joins us now. Good to have you with us. Thank you for being here. Good to be with you, Martha.
Thank you.
How's it going? Do you think he's going to get 60 votes, or do you think that the nuclear option will be employed here?
Well, he has met with close to 40 senators on both sides of the aisle at this point, and we are meeting with many more, 5 Democrats tomorrow. And I think that his impeccable education qualifications, and obviously served on the 10th Circuit for 10 years, he should be getting well over 60 votes. And I have to say we're getting a very good reception in the offices, and he is a man of great integrity. And obviously today, on the 1-year anniversary of Justice Scalia, certainly someone who would be an excellent choice on the Supreme Court.
So in terms of potentially 8 Democrats, do you think you have them yet? Or how close do you think you are to that number?
You know, Martha, I think a number of the Democrats we've met with have expressed openness to his confirmation. So I'm optimistic, and I think that the meetings the judge has had answering their questions, and they see his incredible background, not only his impeccable qualifications, but how he conducts himself with integrity. He's very humble in answering their questions, and I think that that'll bode very well in this confirmation process.
Those things will matter, even though you've got Chuck Schumer and everybody else saying there's just no way.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have some people who unfortunately are going to, dig in their heels for partisan reasons. But there's no question that Judge Gorsuch is so qualified to be on the Supreme Court, an excellent choice by the president. And you see that in many of the meetings that he's having across the aisle, of really having very real interactions with members of the Senate and answering their questions, and they're getting to know him.
We'll see what it's like when we actually get to the hearing part of this process. Right. I want to talk a little politics with you. Apparently over the weekend, the president basically said, boy, if you'd been on the train, we all remember the Trump train during the campaign, to you, former Senator Ayotte, you wouldn't have lost. You know, it was such a close election in New Hampshire. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, the president was kidding around with me about the election, and I have to say I'm really honored to help the president with Judge Gorsuch's nomination. And this is a time when we hope that obviously this really qualified nominee will get confirmed by the Senate, and I'm very glad to help him with this important project.
The president and Stephen Miller both suggested that if you understand New Hampshire politics, which obviously you do, you know that thousands of people are bussed in illegally to vote. Is that true?
Well, again, I don't think we should be relitigating the election, and I think this is right now about making sure that the president's nomination of this excellent judge, Judge Gorsuch, gets confirmed to the court. And certainly, as you look at where we are, and even with the cabinet nominations that have been made, this is an important time for the nation, and especially with this important nomination to the highest court.
So you haven't seen thousands of people being bussed in illegally to vote in New Hampshire?
Well, you know, I obviously had a very close election. I'm really focusing right now on getting the Supreme Court justice confirmed.
All right. Kelly Ayotte, thank you so much. Good to have you here tonight. We'll see you through this whole process as it moves forward.
Thank you.
It's a packed 25th day in office where President Trump draws to a close. The Senate floor is still open for business. More of President Trump's nominees just got through confirmation. It's been a slow but steady process. For those results and what to expect from day 26, Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry up with us this evening. Hello, Ed.
Good to see you, Martha. You know, a busy night in the Senate, as you say, and we finally found a Trump nominee that Democrats can actually vote for, and that is the new VA Secretary. He's one of two people confirmed tonight, Dr. David Shulkin. You can see him there on the right. Significant. Why are Democrats voting for him? He served under President Obama as the Undersecretary for Health at VA. Stephen Mnuchin as well, finally confirmed as Treasury Secretary. In fact, we're told the president any moment now will be taking part in the swearing in of Mnuchin at the White House. Why is that significant? They've been concerned about market reaction with concern about no Treasury Secretary in there for business. Now they finally have one. Big thing coming Wednesday. You have the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming for his first official visit to the White House with President Trump here. Much different relationship expected than the way he was treated in the Obama years for sure. But then look at Jared Kushner there, the presidential son-in-law who's been tasked with, oh, no big deal, come up with Mideast peace. That is a daunting task. And these meetings with between the president and prime minister will be the first big test for Jared Kushner. And then finally, tomorrow, something big on the schedule. A lunch between the president and Governor Chris Christie. Remember, he was the transition chief initially, then was kind of pushed aside, never wound up with a job. He says he was offered all kinds of things. He didn't think any of them were big enough or anything that fit what he wanted to do. So he ended up not getting an administration job. But think about this, Martha. He's having lunch with the president, someone like Christie, who doesn't hold back with advice. As all this speculation is swirling about General Flynn and Sean Spicer and Reince Priebus and who's on thin ice and who's not on thin ice, that lunch tomorrow could be a big deal.
Yeah, no doubt he'll tell him what he thinks. Ed, thank you very much. So earlier we asked, do you really care about the internal strife that's getting so much attention at the White House? Here are some of the responses using the hashtag First100. Cassandra writes, no, Martha, I could care less. Where there are people, there are conflicts, especially if they are high achievers. Teresa tells us, Martha, we all care what's going on. We just wish our president had the support that other presidents have enjoyed. And Carol says this, Martha, do not care about reports of internal strife in Trump's administration. It's all spin by the media. Substance so far, amazing. Hashtag First100. So tonight we leave you with this. Justice Scalia died on this day 1 year ago. It was a shock to the nation. And today we understand that the president spoke with Mrs. Scalia. Scalia was a master of words, so who better to leave you with a quote tonight? He said this. Bear in mind that brains and learning, like muscles and physical skill, are articles of commerce. They're bought and sold. You can hire them by the hour. The only thing in the world not for sale is character. Well said, Justice Scalia.